you filming?
Yeah.
Okay, hey everyone, it's June 3rd, 2012. It's a Sunday, and I'm Roxanne Grinage. I'm the 13-year demonstrator of invention of business method, which is nothing more than using the free and low-cost internet technologies to provide standard access to legal assistant, marketing, careers, and project manager services to enable fair entry, exposure, and earnings opportunities for a previously unaccommodated population of work product U.S. economy careers contributors. Litigation is an industry. Claims being presented responsibly to law enforcement officials are authorized to come in and prosecute and do something about the criminals' behavior is a market entry challenge for the non-agency individual resident citizen having evidence that cannot be heard by prosecutors who can only hear from a referring agency. So that's our administrative challenge. And first, I would just like to say thank you to every collaborator, every person, some of whom I will never ever see in person, but who share with me their most intimate and some horrific, mostly courageous passion to make this world a better place. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you mine, and thank you for the responsibility for owning our mistakes. We are evolving solutions that will save the soul of our nation, the soul of our cities, indeed, the existence of human beings here as a species on this planet. No kidnap for profit person, regardless of age or reason, is dispensable. No person's contribution, no individual contribution is not critical. Every single contribution, every attempt, every method has merit and should be tried and should be built upon. We have to always honor the work that we build upon. We stand on the shoulders of courageous Senator Nancy Schaefer and her husband Bruce, who gave their lives. So we don't take credit for what they did, but we also don't go back and redo what they did. We move forward, building on their shoulders, so that now Higher Lyrics, having provided standard claims intake to over 2,004 federal crime victim class action plaintiffs, having verifiable claims created by official corruption, fraud, or civil rights, or a non-official person's perjury, having a different agenda that results in legal malpractice in state courts. So this purpose of this video is to provide a teaching segment where I share my learning and where we're at in speaking as a voter constituency. Once we realize that the legal malpractice crime victim is a tragically far too large claimant constituency, having verifiable claims and referral capabilities to litigation industry, civil lawsuits and all, where you can prove the personal injury and you can prove the violation of the federal statutes and the state statutes. Our challenge is, how do we get law enforcement to see that criminals, mainly child abuse criminals, domestic violence relation criminals, perjury criminals that create and perpetrate domestic violence, are brazenly functioning in our state family division courts and our municipal courts without consequence, while their relationships with various municipal employees or cover up, or because they know people in certain district attorney's offices, or friends of friends, nepotism, corruption, causes a plethora of matrix-styled just expanding outwardly infinitely crimes: identity theft, falsification of identity documents, embezzlement, fraud, everything. Just crimes that are actual felons that impact our U.S. economy and our state's economy. So that is why we recognize that the same population of crime victim claimants is so large, and that's a sad and tragic thing that creates a public safety emergency. There is an opportunity for benefit if we recognize that at the grassroots level, in our neighborhoods, in our communities, where the crime victim becomes financially devastated, can also be galvanized, voter clout organized to sway elections and to support those ethical, integrous prosecutors who do take their oaths to uphold public safety seriously, and also senators and representatives and lawmakers. And that is why we say vote, vote, vote. Do not withhold your vote. Federal crime victims send a clear message that unethical, non-responsive elected officials are removed. By the same token, we also say that we can have the voter clout with these same collaborative powers of the internet technologies to speak and interface with one another and galvanize each other's support for our initiatives. So we always recognize, this is my learning, we recognize that our victimization is real. It is tragic, it is horrific, and the hardest thing, the most painful thing that we ever have to deal with. But where we as a voter constituency and as a voice of similarly situated claimants are falling short is recognizing that our experience where we were turned away from the FBI, or we were turned away from our district attorney's office, private criminal complaints or prosecution, or the family court or the municipal court just couldn't hear our evidence or just denied that it even existed. We are falling short of speaking in a voice of similarly situated class claimants, and we're falling short of speaking to our state attorney generals as a group of similarly situated crime victims suffering the same crime. And because there are so many of us suffering the same crime of legal malpractice caused by perjury early on in a state court proceeding, we are unable to reach and invoke the help of law enforcement, because it's, as Zane David Meminger, the U.S. Attorney's paralegal, explained to me, the reason the evidence wasn't acted upon was not because it wasn't true and it wasn't dire. It was because the evidence did not come from a referring agency. So what we are demonstrating as an administrative solution is notices to the official contact information. You can do it as a press release, as I did here, and pulling together the pounds and pounds, suitcases full of evolved evidence into active links. Data disk, you send a data disk, but you make those links available, your exhibits and run it across all venues. We have to learn how to lay claims in proper venue, personal and subject matter jurisdiction. And we have to learn how to explain when we're talking to a federal venue what federal statutes, U.S. civil statutes and criminal statutes have been violated. And we have to learn how to distinguish the nature of suit. We have learned that to take on the judges that may or may not have been acting corruptly, and to take on the well-funded DHS and CPS-funded agencies that have unlimited taxpayer-paid-for legal department response and Supreme Court administrative representation, legal expertise, heavy hitters, we've learned that we become even more financially devastated, more defamed in our communities, and pretty much beat down. Okay, so what we're learning is to create and demonstrate an administrative solution, which I call the U.S. Citizens Control Public Docket Database, where you publicly post verified incident reporting in rows, columns, and tables to provide the onlooker. It may be a U.S. Senate committee, it may be a funding decision maker, it may be a state legislator, it may be a prosecutor. You provide them with an overview of exactly where there is massive violations of state statutes in that particular jurisdiction to avoid the autonomy that the states prefer, to be autonomous, and to respectfully let them know that there's a situation going on that is not going to correct itself and cannot police itself. So we report our victimizations, in my case, a crime spree indulged in by Sandra O'Sullivan and Eric L. Brown, who Sandra O'Sullivan's family is very well connected here in Philadelphia with the District Attorney's Office and City of Philadelphia. And you take those public incident reportings, everything from his fraud affidavit of divorce to the perjury that began the first child endangering order on August 17th, his perjury about his long-time history of threatening his family long before he knew Sandra Sullivan, threatening his family with a shotgun and vowing to kidnap the children, and that was his plan all along. And you show the perjury that they tried to hit Lorraine with a car, Sandra Sullivan and Eric Brown. You show the federal court and the prosecutors, the state attorney generals, everything that was legal malpractice in the family court for whatever reason. We come away from talking about why the legal malpractice occurred and trying to bring down big officials which have immunity for civil rights violations no matter what they do, no matter how much and we go to the private citizen, the resident, and we show how they're responsible for abusing law enforcement, federal and local law enforcement, and falsification of identity documents, a credit report for a 5-year-old, for medical services received by an adult, and stolen, and how they have friends in the City of Philadelphia Department of Human Services who stole a DUNS number, Dun and Bradstreet Financial Services. Why they're being allowed, why Sandra O'Sullivan and Eric L. Brown being allowed and being given the coverage by the different City of Philadelphia employees and courts gives the City of Philadelphia dishonest employees the opportunity to embezzle, divert federal fraud, federal grant funding, falsify credit reports, and so on. And that's why we go to law enforcement. We try to find ways, administrative ways to responsibly report the active links to now what has generated into thousands of pages and audio files and video files of evidence as to why the Attorney General and the Attorney General candidates, in our case here in Pennsylvania, Kathleen Kane and David Freed. Kathleen Kane's campaign slogan is "a prosecutor, not a politician." So that's attractive to us because as a federal crime victim, voter constituency, we are recognizing that we have a dwindling, almost non-existent voice, and thereby we are experiencing a public safety emergency in our neighborhood. So we are attracted to anyone who says, I'm going to prosecute fairly, as opposed to care about a political agenda, be influenced by a political agenda. And then there's David Freed, who's the Republican candidate for Attorney General here in Pennsylvania, and his campaign slogan is "a prosecutor to protect Pennsylvania." Protection. What could be more attractive to those voters who understand we are being devastated? Our futures, our health, our heritage, our persons are being fed into disability, wrongful death claims, fraud, embezzlement, theft, destroyed businesses. So the word protect Pennsylvanians is attractive to us for reporting to him our claims as a voter constituency, speaking in a voice of many. Go to www.higherlyrics.org and you can download these pages of the press release, which basically condensed our messages. Pennsylvania citizens need an avenue independent of agency referral, wherein layperson crime victims can submit evidence showing a need for prosecution of federal fraud and municipal assault fugitives who function openly as criminal child abusers in state court family division matters. So you're talking to the current Attorney General Linda Kelly, and you're talking to the candidates who are running on platforms attracting voters about change, saying, I'm the one that's going to be initiated. I'm the one that's going to hear your concerns. So you speak to them with a public safety and crime victim voter constituency concern. This isn't just Roxanne Grinage, Save My Grandbabies. This is, I am the person who has verified 2,000 federal class action similarly situated claims, which innovate 11 new proposed laws, federal laws that have put in place enrich U.S. economy, judicial accountability, education, careers, and court reform, public safety reform. So we speak in a voice of many. We always recognize and give credit to those who have shared with us, whether they became a client or not, whether we were in some type of business relationship with them or not. So on that note, let me just say this too. Explain in every venue, because you're trying to lay claims in proper venues. So you may be, like in our case, we're suing them in a federal lawsuit for the personal injury, regardless of what happens in family court. We anticipate the family court is going to try to cover up the legal malpractice. But that doesn't mean that in the federal jurisdiction that we can't lay claims in a proper venue and have personal jurisdiction for fugitives who lied to U.S. Marshals to avoid service of summons for being sued 12/13/2009 aggravated assaults on minors. You keep bringing in condensed fashion, active links to the proof that these people are fugitives. They are mob assault fugitives. The President Marsha Nayfield's referral, that docket number to the district attorney, and the proofs of your complaints about them to the district attorney's private criminal complaint unit. There have log numbers there, and why and who exactly it is walked away from that window and came back and said, I'm sorry, we can't press charges against Diane Kearney and Sandra Sullivan because they're pretty much untouchable, as Sandra Sullivan is heard saying 45 minutes before the mob assault with baseball bats and guns, child abductions, quote, I'm not worried. No, she's not worried, because she gets away with anything she wants because of who they know in the city of Philadelphia, to the extent she can be a federal and mob assault fugitive, but she can walk up in to Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas in a docket that I opened in 2009, case ID number 0C07052124, and file for custody of Lorraine Grinage's children, in essence expecting a court of record to legitimize her 2-year criminal child abuse injuries of her victims, Ezekiel and Ariel Brown, Lorraine Grinage's children. So you quote to the state attorney general what the state laws are that are violated by her being able to do that, which have to do with, quote, what constitutes child abuse and who is responsible for reporting child abuse. That's where all along the line they can see, hey, they were filed 3 emergency petitions for relief, and they showed the proof of the chronic unreported child abuse. They showed what was going on. They complained about it. So we can see that there is legal malpractice in this family court division, in this part of the state court. All right, the prosecutors can see that their perjury is what caused it. Their perjury early on with a children of hospital social worker, while we were trying to disprove while we were in the process of disproving the perjury with Sandra Justice's video statement, they rolled on and continued to be in contempt of the child endangering orders, all the visitation part, every episode. But by the time we were getting the reports of the abuse the children were suffering and injuries in Sandra Sullivan's house, her son, her teenage son beating on them, scared of a man under the covers, we tried to protect the children in contempt of a court order of child abuse. We tried to protect them, but you can't, as the U.S. Marshals told me when they were handling me on the federal hold, we know something is very, very wrong. However, you cannot fight a state judge in his own jurisdiction. Okay, so that's, oh, he also added, and you really ought to do something about that. So that's when I realized that the challenge is not to just prove what is right or wrong. The challenge is to find out whose political agenda your data lines up with, to have a centralized place of data, as courts have dockets, which are nothing more than scorecards of events, either accurately kept or many times not accurately kept. When you order your transcripts and your docket events, they're never what you remember having occurred. They do it. So if the citizens control a U.S. public docket, then we can restore courage to journalism. Our children of all ages will know the truth that they were loved, wanted, and kidnapped for profit, injured, who was responsible for their injuries. And they will find their way to healing sooner than later. And the defamation that we suffer as a federal crime victim class of claimants will be minimalized. And we can return to our work in our communities. We can return to what we're qualified to do, proud, knowing that we did all we could to tell the truth, that we told the truth no matter what for the sake of truth in public record. And we did not acquiesce, we did not act unlawfully, but we did act aggressively, all right, to recover our heritage, our persons, our kidnapped persons, our health, and our businesses, our vested interests, and our careers contributions. Let's read about the Parental Kidnapping Prevention Act. It is not up to local law enforcement employees to selectively enforce the Parental Kidnapping Prevention Act or to decide the merits of any case, any specific case or situation where the PKPA is applicable. Local law enforcement is bound by law to enforce the Parental Kidnapping Prevention Act. Put these blocks as it pertains to your victimization, put these blocks of statement of facts in all your letterhead, in all your pleadings, in all your notices. And as I tell everyone, don't bother doing anything, filing anything, noticing anything, if you don't publish it somewhere where it can be seen by lawmakers, by prosecutors, by the U.S. Senate, who is always looking to see what is needed in different jurisdictions. And people have position descriptions. People have things that, well, that's not my position description, but this is my position description. And they will parcel out, professionals will parcel out the parts of claims and events and challenges that they are authorized to handle when they are ethical and well-meaning. And there are more good people than bad people. There are more qualified people than incompetent people. And there are integrous, ethical law enforcement people that really do want to do their job and took their oaths to uphold the Constitution seriously. Okay? So our battle is not us against them. Our battle is not to fight the system. I am not an activist. I am a person, a resident of Pennsylvania and an American citizen who simply wishes my right to pursuit of happiness and protection of my family. I am a matriarch of a heritage, okay? And I have a greater vested interest, as you do in your family. I have a greater vested interest in what happens to the person's past and the person's future of my family, okay? And property. Okay, so local law enforcement is bound by law to enforce the Parental Kidnapping Prevention Act, Title 28 U.S. See Section 1738A, also known as the PKPA. It is not up to local law enforcement employees who may be friends with federal fraud and public mob assault fugitives, public mob assault child abduction fugitives Sandra O'Sullivan, Eric L. Brown, Diane and Ledwin Kearney, or the convicted rapist Sheldon Holloway, age 37, with whom Lorraine Grinage's 6-8-10 mob assault abducted during temporary and still pending custody proceedings in Philadelphia Family Division Case ID 0C07051124 were housed. U.S. Attorney Zane David Meminger's paralegal Beverly Brown explained on December 11th, 2011 that Roxanne Grinage's November 9, 2010 hand-delivered evidence children of Lorraine Grinage were in fact mob assault abducted on 6-8-10 during temporary and still pending custody proceedings in Philadelphia CCP Family Division Case ID 0C07051124 were being housed with convicted rapist Sheldon Holloway, age 37, and mob assault participants Eric L. Brown, Sandra O'Sullivan, Diane and Ledwin Kearney, Andrew Grace, Darren, Marquita, Laquita, Sullivan, Tate, Autry, 4835, 4837, and 4824 North 10th Street, Philadelphia, PA, 19141 was not acted upon by law enforcement to rescue crime victim minors because the evidence did not come from a referring agency. In the more information section of this video are links to 1. How 2000 federal crime victim class action case studies innovate 11 proposed laws to enrich U.S. economy, judicial accountability, education, careers, public safety, and prison reform. There's also a link to this press release, June 1st press release to notice to Pennsylvania Attorney General Honorable Linda L. Kelly and Pennsylvania Attorney General candidates Kathleen Kane, Democrat, David Freed, Republican, a public safety and crime victim voter constituency concern when perjury causes malpractice of state statutes, lay claims, improper venue, personal and subject matter jurisdiction. Link, now always put this in there, explain, because when you record someone, one-party consent is needed in your federal claims when you're in that jurisdiction. But different states have different consent rules. So Pennsylvania is a two-party consent with exceptions. So you should explain to be responsible to minimize the threat of damages and claims against yourself, right, by prosecutors, right? You explain the extenuating circumstances for why you hope you're recording these criminals brazenly functioning in family court forced you to have no other choice but to exercise hopefully what are exceptions to the Pennsylvania two-party rule. Links to audio evidence are part of a 28-item data disk exhibit in a verified complaint for damages, nature of suit, personal injuries, gathered in compliance with 18 U.S.C. Section 2510 etc. Quote, one-party consent, wiretapping, electronic surveillance, telephone conversation laws. An explanation is respectfully offered to Pennsylvania Attorney General Honorable Linda L. Kelly and Pennsylvania Attorney General candidates as to extenuating circumstances, chronic unreported criminal child abuse injuries, which may lessen degree of damages and penalties to crime victim citizen laypersons seeking avenues for invoking prosecution intervention as a layperson, possibly qualifying for exceptions, Ray two-party consent telephone conversations, and Pennsylvania wiretapping and surveillance laws. Real quick, I'm getting a lot of calls about, please call me, I don't understand your services, I'm confused. Alright? I have a company website, www.higherlyrics.org. On the home page, scroll down past the pictures and the practice model pictures, and underneath the checklist for information and components of data that anyone can gather for themselves if they need to get together, whether they're going to use an attorney or whether or not they're going to do it themselves, pro se, exercise pro se solutions, is a checklist, all right, that I designed, one of my forms, that I designed to share freely. You're welcome to use that. Right below that is a link that says effective April 15th, the consultant agreement to retain professional services of Roxanne Grinage as a legal assistant, marketing careers project manager. That is mandatory to return. It is compliant with all federal, state, Department of Tax Revenue, all laws, Patriot Act, and it gives me the authorizations to act as your legal assistant or your marketer or your project manager or your careers consultant and or all. Alright? If you have to read that. It is very simple. Go there and read that. If you still want a free, I can give you a free standard claims intake if you contact me in writing saying that you have read all of that contract and that you understand that my giving you a free claims intake is recorded for the purpose of publishing it to a case study page at higherlyrics.org. Go to higherlyrics.org and see that our teaching segments are all shared, automatically playing and available for free download on all the pages at higherlyrics.org. You can get learning freely shared. All right. If you want me to support you administratively outside of a contract for a specific need, there are services available. Pay now buttons are there for services rendered outside a contract on the home page. The third button is wide open for something that we have agreed on that you want me to do. But I'm not returning telephone calls for the sake of staying on the phone, all right, and people scratching their heads. Okay, I demonstrate standard access to legal assistant, marketing, careers, and project manager services. I am a professional. Although it was my personal legal malpractice, crime victimization that gave me the passion to use my practice model of standard access to disadvantaged claimants, it's not for me to throw my life away and be homeless and have all my stuff turned off because I wasted a lot of time with people trying to explain to people I am not an advocate, I am not a volunteer, I am not an activist, I don't go running around protesting. Everything I do is done responsibly, lawfully, and aggressively. So if you hire me in contract, you can definitely say my work is confidential, do not publish, but you have to pay me for that. If you want me to do something for you free, you have to compensate me by allowing me to share it with others. Not only for the purpose of helping others find their way, other victims, but also so law enforcement can see we have one more claim in this jurisdiction. Okay, I'm running out of time, battery time. I apologize for the noise in the background. That's the air conditioning. Go to my website, higherlyrics.org. Contact me by email. Contact me in writing. If you call me on the telephone, state clearly that you understand my return call is going to be recorded, and you want me to give you a free standard claims intake assessment. Otherwise, if you want a consultation kept confidential, there's a payment button for that at www.higherlyrics.org. God bless everyone. And again, thank you, thank you, thank you.